Hello, you guys. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. I am your humble host here to bring you the new and the good. No, seriously. Here on Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson, we do have a platform that is focused 100% on accountability in our community. And when I say our community, I mean Black, brown, melanated people, us, those people. Um, so I am indeed your humble host, and we're going to delve into some maybe unpopular opinions that some people say about males and their tendency to cheat. Specifically, the relationship topic of discussion comes from a Black male who is in California. And I'll give you guys all of the specifics on that when we do return to this particular point of the discussion. We do typically talk about a lot of things in the culture, so not just relationship topics, but typically weekly we do feature some level of a relationship discussion topic, because I get a lot of emails surrounded around people who want advice about what's going on in their life and in relation to their relationships with other people. A little bit of a disclaimer: I am a marriage and family therapist. However, these topics are my personal opinions, and sometimes there are some biases that are professional biases to my responses, but most of the time I try to just give you guys that unfiltered self of me and self of the therapist response to the relationship topics that are featured on the channel. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the pre-show, where I will give you a preview of some of the talking points for the show, and then I will jump right back on after about a minute or so, giving you guys time to kind of review all of that, take it in, look at the talking points, get together some of your thoughts and opinions that you would like to share on the show as to what your responses are to our specific talking points. And then you can type them in the comments, or you can click the link, because I did post the show link on both platforms that I'm streaming live on. You can click the show link, join the actual show, and share your opinions after you cam up, and I make sure that you're a real person and all that good stuff. So without further ado, let me jump into the pre-show, and I will be right back. Hi. So welcome back. I want to jump right into the show because, as usual, you guys, I don't want you to feel like I be rushing things or whatever, but sometimes I have an internal clock of motivation to get the show done. As you know, we didn't do a show yesterday. It was Labor Day. I was going to not labor, like literally. I just didn't. But who knows the purpose of the holiday? There's something to perhaps research, right? So I want to start at the top with the first talking point that I've already selected. And I want you guys to feel free to share your thoughts. And as I mentioned, if you guys are catching me on a social media platform other than YouTube, then you can come to the YouTube page and catch me over here on the YouTube side. Let me post the link to the YouTube, so that way you have it, and you guys can come over here to this side of things. I don't even know how to do that. Go to YouTube and press Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. Okay. That might be an easier way to join, because I do not think that on my actual page on Facebook that allows you to get the comment that I typed in. But yeah, but so there's that part. So this topic, to give you guys a little bit of background, was inspired by a relationship discussion question that was sent in by a Black male who is, based on his email, um, a high value man, HVM. Guessing that's what that means based on some of the context that he provided in that very long email. And I will read that to you guys later. But I did kind of put a snapshot of what his question was actually in the pre-show. So if you didn't catch that part, I don't know. I think on YouTube you can kind of roll the clip back to see what the talking points were. So it speaks to the nature of what we hear people say when we hear them say boys will be boys, or he's a man, men are going to be men are going to do what men do, right? And I want to know, for you guys, when you hear that reference, right? Boys will be boys. What does that mean for you? What do you take that to mean? Like, how does it sit with you? How does it resonate, right? What do you take from it? And do you think to yourself, like, oh, okay, well, that means it's okay for men to explore their options, which is another thing that was used in the language in his email. But what do you think when you hear that? Because I'm going to be honest, okay? I hear boys are going to be boys, and I look at boys as little ruffins, right? Rough, right? They may skin their knee, they may fall, they may climb trees. These are things that are norm expected of boys. They're going to hurt themselves. They're going to be a little rough. That's what I think. I've never thought to myself, all men cheat. That means that all men need to, or lean to, have access to random women, need to have access to a multitude of women, or any of that. Okay. Now that's coming from a person who does delve into infidelity recovery work on a regular basis. But even if I tried to compile a statistic of the number of cases that I see professionally where people are coming in as a result of their male partners cheating, whether it's a male with a complaint or a female with a complaint, I can't say that what I gather from that is that all men cheat. I'm just going to say that, okay? And I asked a person that I've known for quite some time his thoughts, and I got, in his response, I guess I will say that's a little bit of, there's a little bias in his response, if I'm being honest. He's like, so a little bias and a little defense, right? A little defensiveness, because he's like, women cheat too. So it's not about whether or not women cheat. You do realize that men are in relationships with men, right? Men can be in relationships with men, and men can be in relationships with women. So the show isn't about women and them cheating, because the topic that was sent to me to give this guy a feedback about what to do in his relationship situation came from a male who's threatening to go cheating. I don't know what you would call that. Threatening to go out in these streets. I don't know. That's his threat, you know? So I find it intriguing even, that would even be a point of contention in a response. So Justin says, I find that more women cheat than males. And this is from a professional standpoint. That's interesting. Okay. Well, this particular therapist cannot attest to that being. I can't even. I don't even want to make a generalization, because I feel like there are way too many cases. Like I've seen I have a lot of couples experience and filial experience, and I've done a lot of work with infidelity recovery. I've trained tons of clinicians. Like, when I think about what my reach is, when I look to my work that I've done professionally, that's a lot. It's a large number to even think about scalability right now off the top of my head. But I will not say that I've seen more cases of women in heterosexual relationships cheating. Now, if I had to say, cheating, right, it's not due, in my opinion, it's not due to the gender of the person. Okay. It's not due to the sex of a person. And it can be due to a lot of things, right? However, I do not think that men will be men or boys will be boys. For me, when I hear that, I do not think that that covers the likelihood of a person being disloyal. Okay? Right? So, the next talking point. Do Black men have an issue with fidelity, or is it men in general? Justin says that men are not the ones with the problems with cheating, it's women. And that might be a point that might be valid when we come to reviewing this guy's relationship topic, okay? Because what I may do is kind of skip his relationship topic and offer a little bit more context, and then come back to some of the talking points that I've already kind of covered or browsed to, because his email was very detailed. I'm going to say that, okay? And it provides a lot of context to what I feel may speak to some of this, okay? But I don't know, because I'm not a Black male. I can't say if Black men have a problem with fidelity. In my experience in personal relationships, in my experience in professional relationships with clients, and finding out what it is that they're coming to therapy, and then reviewing some of their past history of behavior around hypersexuality, the way they view sex and relationship and whatever intimacy, I will say that I have not found that many, the vast majority of Black men, or the men that I have found, struggle with fidelity issues or commitment issues or anything like that. I can't say that that's been a Black man issue. You know what I mean? But what do you guys think? Okay. So I will say that men rarely show emotional intelligence to show a rational response during conflict after infidelity. I will say that men in general have a tendency to be very emotional in general. And as a result of that emotional component being something that men typically lead with, they bottle things up and then it kind of explodes, right? Instead of like approaching things when things become a thing for them, and communicating, because men don't tend to communicate well, like verbally. They communicate in different ways until things become too big, essentially, to address. That's my humble opinion. But it's my humble opinion based on a history of seeing almost 500,000 people over my tenure as a therapist. So I will say, yeah, I'll say that's what I've seen. And I think that that's neither here nor there. It's neither a good thing or a bad thing, but I do feel like in many of these situations, let's say these instances are the first time that a man is experiencing these issues, and they're in newer relationships, right? They're in newer commitments. And as a result of that, sometimes the commitments fail to give what it is that they wanted to give. And they never knew how to convey what they even thought they wanted. less known what they actually needed from the relationship. So I feel like these are things that are kind of wound up in the process of the why people in general, not men, find themselves being disloyal or, you know, ebbing and flowing, moving and swaying on the commitments that they decided to make to another person, right? So when we're exploring this topic, I want to explore commitment and what that really is, right? Because we're going to compare a lot of different types of relationships for the purpose of giving him a full-on answer to his question that he's posed. But I guess he's got a couple of parts to his submission. So commitment is when we avow ourselves to something, right? When we say that, hey, this is something that I'm interested in, and this is something that I want to do. Hey, this is something I'm going to do, right? Because some commitments don't involve one standing before a pastor, preacher, member of clergy, and making a commitment formally in front of a group of people. Sometimes it's just us giving another person our word. And I do feel like we live in a society today where we've moved so far away from the value of a person or the weight of a person's word being law, right? We've moved into this, even if you do have video footage, it wasn't me, right? Nobody has a sense of accountability, okay? And so given that fact, we feel like we can kind of back out of everything that we commit ourselves to. We're watching, what's his name? Judge Mathis. We're watching him go through one of the most difficult times in a person's life in public. Okay. This person was married over the course decades to a person and have built a life with another person, and then found himself maybe not necessarily living up to the expectations of this woman. And as a result of it, you see him very publicly trying to fight for the love, the adornment, the commitment of his wife. And his wife has decided to end the relationship. And for a long period of time, since women became people that had rights, women have been leaving their husbands, divorcing their husbands for more or less lack of satisfaction in the relationship. I think we simply do not know how to hold ourselves to our word anymore. And as a result of that, we don't really understand commitment in a way that would keep us bound to a person once we've bound ourselves spiritually and otherwise to people. So those are my thoughts about it. Let me know what you see commitment as and what you feel in connection to commitment and how that looks like for you in your life, right? So it has been stated that if a person cheats, if a partner cheats, male to male in a relationship, male to female in a relationship, female to female, female to non-gender identity, all of these different types of partners that one could have, let's put it like that. If a person cheats in a relationship, it's your fault. They cheated on you. So that means it's something that you were not doing, right? And I think that that's interesting in general, as I was looking at and dissecting his submission. And I want to know if that comes up for you guys as his perspective in general, based on the words that he has committed to putting on the paper. Okay. So let me know your thoughts about that, right? And therapy can't help hoism. First, my question is, what is hoism to you, right? What is it to be a person who is considered to be a whore for all intents and purposes? What is that now in today's society? Is it the equivalent of men being men? Like going out, exploring their options, as they say, sowing their royal oats, or a woman doing the same? Therapy, in my opinion, is a tool, right? It's a means to an end. We all have parts of us that are typically damaged from a plethora of different variables of exposure over the course of one year life. And I think that we have to consider the impact of the exposure piece and the trauma, right? And the way that we respond to some of the things that we're exposed to over the course of our lifespan. Therapy is meant to help us self actualize, right? Become a better version of ourselves and realize what version of ourselves we currently are. Because sometimes we don't even know who we are in our becoming. We're still developing, we're still taking in experiences, going through life's journey, navigating it with a magnifying glass sometimes, because some things are not as clear as they should be, right, over the course of life. And therapy is supposed to help us kind of unpack some of the experiences that we've shoved into this bag, this collection, right? And told ourselves that that was temporary, or that was momentary, or that's something that we don't need to talk about right now, or that's something that doesn't need to be revisited, or that was a terrible moment, so we ain't going back there. These kinds of things, right? And I believe personally we have to learn how to call a thing and not try and label the things that we do identify as a thing. It doesn't have to be good, it doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to be socially unacceptable when we address that this thing is a thing for us. So if you're going out and you're hypersexual, you're exploring sex with different partners, etc., and that's your thing, right? What do you want out of life at that point, though? Right? And then what do you want out of life long term? And are the things that you find yourself exploring right now going to affect the life that you say you want to lead in the future, right? So, you know, that's the purpose of therapy. It's not to make you move off your square, whatever you decide to do, right? So before I go, I'm gonna put this one up, right? So you can know how we're going to explore this piece of his question. E&M is ethical non-monogamy. Okay. And then another type of relationship is polyamory. Another type of relationship is monogamy. And if we're exploring the modern day, paradigm shifts, what we're looking at is monogamy back in the day amongst some of the first people meant that you would be pledged, betrothed, dedicated to, committed to one person over the course of your lifespan, right? That was the original death do us part. Okay. And that's what monogamy was. What we now call monogamy is more non-monogamy but exclusive relationships. And in these types of relationships, you have one partner at a time. One partner at a given time in a given commitment situation, right? So we're going to refer to that as monogamy for the intensive purposes of this particular conversation. Polyamory, on the other hand, is a relationship where people experience multiple loving relationships within one particular dynamic. Okay. And the different polyamory can look a lot of different ways. You have lots of different polycules, if you will, right? Different types of configurations when it comes to polyamorous relationships, but they are previously already designated, right? How many partners for each type of situation, what it looks like, what communication lines look like, what fluidity in communication or sex or intimacy looks like in those relationships. Polyamorous relationships are not just open relationships. They are relationships that involve a specific type of commitment to a specific number of partners in a specific type of way, right? It's already predetermined in the same way that these monogamous, for the purposes of preference, relationships are formed with the expectations of two people that are committed to only one another and they forsake all others, right? In polyamorous relationships, you have a specific expectation around commitment to however many partners, depending on your different dynamic, right? And there is a dyadic expectation based on which type of relationship in polyamory you fit, right? The mold of. And everybody is aware, right, of the dynamic because it's, you know what I mean? That's an introductory component, right? There is fluid exchange of communication typically between people that are in that close dynamic together. And even in the ones that are in separated relationships, separate loving relationships, there is still a generalized understanding and there is a commitment to the type of dynamic that you've chosen, you best fit or best align with. Now, in ethical non monogamy, those are more like your open relationships, okay? Pop culture centered open relationships. I'm opening up my relationship to some other options, but I'm remaining committed to whomever I've decided to start this relationship with. And sometimes I have noticed that, this is the generation of people that likes to create their own understandings around things and recreate new definitions of things. Yeah. Um, yeah. There is that. But I have noticed that there are some polyamorous couples or people that call themselves polyamorous, and those people embrace some form of ethical non-monogamy at some point because they find that they're no longer a natural fit for the type of polyamorous relationship that they previously, dedicated themselves to. But you also see that more popularly arising from people that are in monogamous relationships. Okay. Um, so hey Cortez, how are you? But so let's go now to this relationship talk. I am now going to read the full email from this young man. So the relationship topic comes from a 54-year-old Black male with who is in a relationship with a 46-year-old mixed race female in Los Angeles, California. It says, "Hi, I am a Black HVM with a high value male who is healthy at 54 years of age. I have never exercised sexual options as many men in my social circle do." Good God, y'all know my readers, okay? As I am earning $750,000 annually. My wife is a healthy 46-year-old Hispanic and Black female who doesn't work and has never worked since meeting me. She was a waitress when we met. I feel like I have earned her continued submission and cooperation. I care about her deeply as she is the mother of my 4 children. What is the most ethical way to pursue a shift in an existing relationship when my wife of 15 years is no longer willing to engage in sex because she says she has never experienced an orgasm and has been faking it while we have been together? We have teenage kids, so leaving is out of the question at this point. I have sexual needs, and God says it is a sin for a woman to deny her man. Doc. Okay, that's what he says. Then he says, "What do I do?" He goes on to say she doesn't know how fortunate she is that I have remained faithful to her when I have had women offering me sex left and right our entire relationship, as we have been together for 26 years. 26. I don't need long to get off during sex because that's the part that I'm really confused. I think he says I think it means the last 6 years I have struggled with premature ejaculation where I come as soon as I am inside of her. Just don't see how she can be so selfish. That's a lot. Okay? My eyeballs are burning. So now that I have read that, let's get back to it. Okay, so we can dissect these other parts of the talking points that apply to his email. Okay. So, a couple of things, right? He talked about a shift in the nature of his relationship or organizational structure of his relationship. right? So I guess we'd be talking about any of these options at this point. Based on his submission, we're going to go ahead and say that he was in a monogamous marriage with this woman for the duration of, gotta go find it. Hmm. I swear, blowing things up. It's because he typed it into words instead of writing the number. Let's see. 15 years. Okay. So if you've been married for 15 years and you've been with her for 26 years, let's start there. Let's do the math because math wouldn't be math. You have teenage kids. That means for 11 years, this woman was in a relationship with you, right? I'm right. 11? Yeah. She was in a relationship with you for 11 years, which were her very healthy, ideal connection with another person if she were looking for a potential suitor, right? So she gave you 11 of her good years. 11 years, and then you decided to marry her. You've been together for 26 years. That means you got with her when she was 20 years old. She's 46 years old now. And you're a bit older than her. What, 8 years? Yeah, so you're 8 years older than her. And it took you 11 years to make the decision to commit, or maybe 10 years. Let's just back up a year for the purpose of an engagement, right? How long do people typically stay engaged? A year, right? But it took you that long to figure out that she was the one. And here's the thing, you guys. I don't want to be biased or say that all women should enter into relationships with a 90-day rule or something like that. But I'm going to say this. So you wasted her relationally connecting years for 11 years before marrying her. That's the one part of this, right? And then she gives you 4 kids in record time. And you guys now have teenagers, right? You've been married for 15 years. I don't know if they had the kids prior to, they said teenagers, because 15 years of a marriage could still yield a teenager. They're still around 17 if they've been together for 26 years. Okay, so, but let's say this, right? You were in a relationship with her for all this time before marrying her, before making her a wife. Normally, women are looking for becoming a wife, all right? If they're in a relationship for that long, they're looking for something that, like a solid commitment. The fact that she says that she was in this relationship for 26 years with you and she never experienced an orgasm and she was faking it for all that time. Ladies, let me say something, okay? Now, this goes to that talking point of if you get cheated on, it's your fault. There is no way that you're going to be in a relationship with someone for that long, over 20 years, and your intentions is not just to be in a relationship with a person that is financially going to secure you and your kids, but anything else other than that. And then you're faking it. The fact that she's never worked really since they've been together says that maybe she was trying to get out of the waitressing industry. I don't know. There are some indicators there. I don't really know because I haven't talked to this woman. But what I'm going to say is, if you were in a relationship with a person for that long and you've been faking it for that long, you not had one orgasm though? You got 4. I'm sorry. I'm just saying. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to figure out how that happens. I'm just trying to figure out how that happens. How do you stay with a person that you're not sexually connected to for this long and engage in sex? I don't know how long did he mention how long it's been since they've had sex last? I don't know. However, I'm going to say this, okay? It's okay to expect things to shift in your relationship. When you make a commitment to someone, you are making a specific commitment. There are specific words. I'm telling you, even the preachers say that marriage is not an entity to be entered into lightly. Okay? They warn you. They warn you, and then they go back after they double back and they ask you the question if anybody in here thinks these two shouldn't be, has a reason as to why these two shouldn't be, whatever, right? You can be the person to object, and they ask you to consent. So they ask you, will you take this person for better or for worse? For better or for worse says when their parts don't work sexually. It says that when they have cheated on you, I'm sorry, ladies, but here we are, okay? If it says all of that, good times and bad times and sickness or health, it does not give you a free ticket out of a relationship. It just doesn't. Now, shifts in what it is that the relationship you guys are building looks like in order to accommodate one or the other or both parties in the relationship, I guess I'm open to discussing what that could look like, right? I'm just wondering, I guess my question would be, have you had the conversation with her, right? And I would probably give two separate pieces of advice depending on how those conversations panned out, right? That you may or may not have had. Hey, Kale. So if the conversation with her is panned out, if you've had a conversation with her already, and she has already consented to saying, yes, we can definitely find someone else to invite into this relationship to satisfy our needs collectively or individually, spice it up, etc., then of course that would mean that you guys are entering into what is called ethical non-monogamy, right? Where you're informing one another as to what it'll look like to open up the relationship and then making a specific agreement as to how it is for you guys to actually start that, right? Initiate that and continue it in a healthy way, where emotions are protected, egos are protected, etc. Right? You establish the baseline for what things change as far as the rules that guide and construct the type of relationship that you currently find yourself in. Now, I think that people in general set themselves up for this type of situation by having unrealistic expectations of marriage, not really fully understanding what the commitment, the weight of the commitment that they're making really means, what it actually looks like, and how it is that they're going to make things work during difficult times. That is the reason why I always recommend people go to marital or premarital therapy, because I think you need to explore all of the ins and outs of what may or may not change or shift for you as you enter into this newfound territory of self-discovery. Okay? So again, back to my suggestions. If you've had a conversation with her, I think that's where you specifically explore which one of these types of relationships you're expecting to shift into, right? And then as a result of that conversation, maybe maybe relationship coaching is what you need. Because if you're going to now enter into a polyamorous relationship from modern day monogamous relationship or non-monogamous exclusive relationships even, I think it's really important to find the natural alignment in a polyamorous dynamic that fits with you. And you're not picking it. It naturally just suits what you've described as your needs in a relationship with your partner in another, or your partner in two others, or however many, right? I think that that's really important, because many people jump into polyamory. They say, oh, we're polyamorous, but they're really in an open relationship, which now it's really just ethical non-monogamy. I think having that discussion beforehand is what prevents you from just an all-out chaotic situation where people are now in their feelings, in their emotions, ruining the lives of the other person, making things worse, then not knowing how to have the conversations of coming out as to what changes and shifts are happening in your relationship with your children, with your family, etc. Not even saying that you're married to them, but I think that the best bet is to have the conversation first. Feel out your partner, see where she is. It sounds like you guys have had some level of a discussion because she's made it clear as to why it is she's not having sex with you. I have a lot of feelings about that. I think that each person in a relationship, male or female, has the right to consent to what it looks like for them to be physically intimate with their partner and sexually intimate with their partners. I do not feel like it's appropriate or it's right morally to reference the Bible or religion and say that a woman doesn't have the right to deny her husband because it's her body, right? In the same way that if it were a man, it's his body. He can decide whether or not he wants to sleep with his wife. He can decide whether or not he wants to sleep with other women. That's the reality of it all. But you would hope that if you've married a person, that you've made a conscientious decision that says that you found that you're a really good fit for this person in general. And that person does it for you, right? So what is the most ethical way to pursue this shift? I think the answer is communication. Effective communication between two people who love each other, who have committed themselves to one another, and maybe begin with the reality of your situation. You perhaps committed yourself to something that you had no idea it'd end up here. I'm just wondering if you guys waited for the relationship to start engaging in sex, though, because I do not see how a person knowingly being in a relationship with a person for over 10 years at all could enter into a marriage knowing that they've never experienced an orgasm if they've been having sex with them. I have many questions around that. What do you guys think? You guys got my thoughts, okay? So do I feel like all men cheat? Do I feel like all men cheat? No, I do not. I do not. That has not been my personal experience, and it's not been a plethora of experiences of clients in therapy where they presented with the man in a relationship and the male-female relationship cheating mostly or anything like that. I think that people in general happen to step out of their relationships because they make commitments that are larger than them. They make commitments that are larger than their capacity. And they've not really gotten to know themselves before making those commitments. I think that when we find ourselves in those types of situations, we have to ask ourselves what we are truly made of. And I feel like marriage is one of those types of relationships that will definitely pull that out of you. You will find out who you really are. You'll find out what you're really made of when you're made to stick to a commitment that no longer bears fruit to what it is you expected for it to bear or yield, that no longer pours into you in the way that initially it did. It doesn't fit the schematics of what you want for your life anymore. And I think that that's with everything. We have to learn how to stick with the things that we pledge ourselves to. Endurance is a quality that many people lack. And I think that that is a quality that definitely needs to be fine-tuned in humanity. But I think that we just need to do our research before we decide to even commit in the first place, right? Commit yourself to doing an extensive plethora of research before saying I'm all in, because it's a lot. That's a lot to commit yourself to someone, to have children with yourself, I mean, with the person that you've chosen and has chosen you, and then find yourself at an impasse like this phase, and to consider divorce would be the thing that would look more like it's unethical. I commend him for being a man, not for being a man that's a high earner, bringing a certain amount of money to the table and taking care of his family and staying faithful. But I commend you for writing in before jumping out there doing something hasty that you may regret. And I commend you also for seeing the value and honoring your commitment to someone that you made and not even considering a divorce. Because that's the thing that stood out for me. Like, he's not weighing in divorce as an option for him. He's looking for ways to get his needs met. And he even talked about some of the personal things. I appreciate for him for sharing some of those personal things that, other people may not be so prone to share. And just for the record, erectile disorder and oftentimes premature ejaculation are some of the most misconceived or misdiagnosed conditions in people. Perhaps it's something else there, right? Because if you're making it inside of her vagina and you're feeling something and then you're ejaculating, it's not premature ejaculation, it's just hypersensitivity maybe in that area, or maybe you're enjoying yourself a bit much, right? But sex and intimacy inside of a marriage should be something that two people are exploring or multiple people are exploring and enjoying together collectively. It's not a one-sided situation. So one way or the other, it's not a selfish decision when she says I'm no longer engaging in sex. I think it's a pragmatic decision. It's probably one where it's like, okay, we have our kids, so I've given you your legacy, so go out there and find somewhere else to stick it. I don't know. I think it's worth exploring what it would look like for you to have an additional partner to help satisfy your needs. But I think that also means that you have to be open to providing her with a resource to actually get her needs met too. If that's even something that she's interested in exploring at this point, right? Because sometimes you get so accustomed to doing a thing in the way that you're doing it that it just has become like a thing of habit. Okay. So I think that that's possible. I hope that that's the reason that she's endured being in this relationship for that long and not ever experiencing an orgasm. I'm wondering if she experienced an orgasm with someone else, if she wasn't a virgin when you guys got married. I have a lot of different questions. And I feel like I can't give you solid advice on just what you gave me, even though you gave me a lot. So I would say take the surface level advice that I've given you so far. And if that's not enough for you, just send me more details, answer some of the questions that I posed during the show. And I hope that this helps. I really do. I really do. Because that's a difficult predicament to find yourself in. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine. Mm-mm, mm-mm. I can't. Don't know what that's like. So there is that. Continue to share your thoughts and your reflections, and maybe people out there in this world that have experienced some similar or the same thing that you're going through right now can shed some light as to what it is or how they would approach it, and maybe that could be beneficial for you too. I think it's important for us to share, because if one person is experiencing this, maybe a multitude of people are. I don't know. So that is all that I have. All that I have, and I hope that helps. Thanks, you guys, for the people that chimed in, and thanks for the people that have watched the show today. I hope that you guys have an amazing, a fantastic rest of your Tuesday evening. And I'll be seeing you in the next one. Later days. Bye.